Gaming Manual.
Hey everyone, this is Josh from the Gaming Manual. Today, on Rental Rejects, we will be looking at Pink Panther Goes to Hollywood, a 1993 platformer for both the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis. Both are a side-scrolling platformer that stars the Pink Panther as he tries to get into showbiz and has to navigate through Hollywood-themed levels that most of us might recognize. It's the same name, but two completely different games. But honestly, these are games that I remember not because they were good, but because of the horrible weekend I had when I rented them. Both of these games were bad choices for a weekend rental, each with their own faults, but both sharing the same problem of bad controls. The Super Nintendo version leans into puzzles and exploration, while the Genesis is more of the standard platformer. Both games start in the kitchen, which acts as a hub for getting to the other levels. In the Super Nintendo version, there are enemies as well as tokens in the kitchen, treating it as if the kitchen itself is a level. In the Genesis version, you have to travel to each set or level, which has hazards along the way that could kill you. But luckily, in the Genesis version, you also have a health bar. But it doesn't help much when you're constantly taking damage. Both of these features are unnecessary, and you'll end up spending most of your time in these areas as there is no save feature or passwords, and the game is very punishing. A linear stage progression would have worked a lot better for these two games. Both have the issue of poor hit detection, as well as feeling a little bit slippery and floaty. It's strange that you have two different games, and yet the same problem in both of them. For me, one of the biggest issues was the controls. Not only are they floaty, hard to utilize, but everything feels like you're constantly slipping, and you're constantly trying to overcorrect, leading you to take more damage. In the Super Nintendo, taking one hit will lose the hat that you're currently wearing, and a second one kills you, unless you've picked up additional hats. In the Sega version, you have a health bar, but you're constantly taking damage. The best thing to do is take advantage of the invulnerability state and just keep running through the level. In some cases, like in the Thanksgiving level, the best strategy is just to stay in the river that deals damage and just run through it. It's actually quicker than trying to do the proper navigation through platforming, and the hit detection on both games are absolutely atrocious. More times than I can count, I've thought I would have landed on a platform or hit an enemy, and it didn't register. There are a lot of areas in both games where you can just instantly die, typically in a pit, and while the Super Nintendo is much more egregious with the use of it, the Genesis isn't much better. As I said at the beginning, they both have similar level design, but they actually are completely different in how they're laid out and you navigate them. And yet both of them still have problems with the enemy placement in the overall challenge. The enemy placements are very hard to see, so unless you know when an enemy is coming or taking it very slow, you oftentimes end up taking hits that are unavoidable. And if that's not bad enough, the actual challenge is questionable as they have huge difficulty spikes at random intervals. In the Western, you'll have bottles getting thrown at you what feels almost unpredictable times, resulting in a lot of damage. Both have water levels, and both of them are absolute garbage. The way you swim feels very similar to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from the Nintendo, and if you haven't played that, the swimming can be very aggravating. You constantly have to press the jump or swim button while trying to navigate through these very tight areas, and in the Super Nintendo versions, you can actually get crushed in some areas, or you're constantly surrounded by enemies and you can't attack while airborne, only when you're on the ground. The Genesis, you can attack while you're airborne, but all the enemies are so difficult to hit and require precision to get the correct hitbox area. In both cases, these water levels really should just be absent from the games because they have no desirability in terms of playability. It makes me wonder if they really did test the games. Both games also have a freezer level where you travel through the fridge and then later the freezer, having to dodge different types of food and eventually play a Thanksgiving themed level when you go into a turkey. And yes, that is just as absurd as it sounds. But what's really annoying is that certain parts of the fridge or freezer level have extra ice physics to make it even slippier, which is exactly what we need in a game with floaty controls that feels like you're already running on ice. One thing that I do enjoy about both versions of the game is the music. The Super Nintendo has what sounds like an orchestrated music where they constantly are taking the theme of the level they're in and kind of remixing it with the classic Pink Panther, whereas in the Genesis, well, it has more of that synth Genesis sound to it. It's unfortunate, though, that because of the unnecessary difficulty, that you're likely not going to have heard all of the music during a rental period. One thing that really annoys me with the Super Nintendo version is the continue screen. As you noticed, you can simply walk over to where it says exit, but guess what? That actually quits the game and brings you back to the title screen. So even if you had 3 continues, you just gave up. This is one of the most unnecessary parts of the game, and the first time I rented it, kept trolling me as I kept going into the exit on the bottom, thinking that's how I continue. Why even have this in there? A simple continue yes/no would work. In fact, that's what the Genesis version does. A very simple yes or no on the continue screen. And that's one thing that the Genesis has going for it, aside from the health bar so you can take a few extra hits. I don't know if anybody else had the same issues I had, especially when it came to renting these 2 games, but I would love to read your comments below to see what you experienced. Overall, both of these games are pretty bad, but if you were going to pick one to actually try for yourself, highly recommend the Genesis version, as it's actually more playable. But just because it's a little bit more playable doesn't mean that it's good, as it still suffers from a lot of problems. In my opinion, the Super Nintendo isn't playable at all. I'm sure there are some people out there who have managed to beat it, but I can't believe they did it easily. And this is exactly why, as a kid, when I rented these games, I only rented them once, and wasted my whole weekend just trying to beat a level. This is Josh from the Gaming Manual. If you like what you saw, hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't already. Let us know of your opinion of the game in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next video.
Gaming Manual.